to meet on the Commons because there was a meeting time and scheduled for 12, and we had to stop at Burger King, get something to eat. And we arrived on the campus just as the Guard were forming up, and there were students. Our intention was to join the rally, but to be up at the top of the hill with the spectators. We were spectators rather than participants or party goers. But we couldn't because the Guard was in front of us. We come up behind the Guard as they were organizing. And the Jeep went out, as we saw in the film, and saying, everybody disperse or you're subject to arrest. And so Will and I just stood back about 50 feet behind the National Guard. And there were other students, not only the demonstrators in front of us, but they were on the sides. They were sort of considered observers, I guess, and they were students way off to the left. And when you hear about, well, there were 4,000 protesters. Well, maybe not protesters, but there were a couple thousand at least students watching the event. And most of them thought we were just going to watch the Guard chase these, the ones with enough guts to stand in front of them, just chase them around the campus for a while. But, so we moved off, then the Guard started shooting tear gas canisters, and that became a bit of a joke because those canisters all came flying back at them. And so we moved to our right side as the Guard moved out to clear the protesters. We stayed behind them basically. I don't know maybe they didn't look around to see who was behind them. They should have done that too. So we stayed to the right, and we followed them all the way up as students were pushing their way back up the hill. And we were off to the side, 50 or 100 feet from the Guard, and staying not directly behind them. And at some point, we got to the hill, we decided to just stay there because we didn't want to get behind these guys with the guns and get caught in some some way that we were going to be in trouble. It just felt we should just wait there a minute. I figured they'd come back down, but they were up there for a while, playing around in the practice football field, taking a lot of harassment, and then they started to move out of there, out of the football field, and stopped at the top of the hill, and we could barely see them. I know we could see helmets, but and suddenly the shooting started, and almost like a machine gun, or 40 people shooting at the same time with a lot of boom, 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 boom. And we couldn't imagine what the hell they were firing at. And Will said, well, there must be blanks. I didn't see any blanks, and suddenly they come backing up really quickly and come rushing down the hill and past us. And of course, those of us off on the side went up the hill to see what had happened. And that's when it was kind of quiet for a couple of seconds or a minute, and then there was a lot of screaming and hollering and yelling. And at first it was hard to tell who was hurt or who was just hysterical. Because I remember one guy next to me, this woman was on her knees kind of screaming, and he said, "Are you hurt?" She said, yes, and we realized she was making a scene, and she composed herself and shut up. So we were trying to get the lay of the land, who was hurt or if anyone was hurt, but and that's something I noticed one guy that off to my left who had been shot and hurt me in the chest or stomach, and there were about 3 people helping him. And there were several veterans, I'm not saying all of them, but several veterans who were first aid. There were other people besides veterans up there, of course, helping. And so I figured that guy was all right. So I walked a little further, and I spotted Jeff Miller lying face down, and I approached, and just as I approached this woman knelt down next to him and took his pulse, and I imagine she was a nurse, or she at least knew how to take a pulse. But when I approached him, but he was so unmistakably dead that I didn't even check his pulse. And I didn't know how many. I didn't know there were a dozen people wounded. I could only see Miller. And I looked over and I saw Dean Kaler. I didn't know it was Dean Kaler, but it was a guy lying in the grass, so I kind of skedaddled over to him, and another guy, I reached him about the same time. He was lying face down, and the other guy was jumped over to his right, and I was on his left, and I checked his pulse, and the other guy asked him, well, are you hit? He said, yes, he was hit in the back. So our concern was that he might be bleeding out, but he had a good pulse, and I kept monitoring that. It seemed like forever, because we didn't know if he was bleeding or how long he was going to last, but he survived the day. He was one of the last wounded to be taken out. A lot of people stopped to check, and he was thinking there were a lot of people